All right, guys, JB, the wolf is in the house for a Whiteboard Wednesday. Got a great topic today. It's really about finding the sweet spot as an entrepreneur, as a salesperson, as a success-oriented person of any sort. Meaning, if there's two sides to succeeding, meaning you have this ability to succeed wildly. What do you do when things are really running well, right? How do you scale a business? How do you take something that's working and grow it, right? I call that succeeding wildly. Succeeding wildly, right? But then on the other side of the equation, right, you have what's called failing elegantly. In other words, when you're testing out ideas, you're just getting started as an entrepreneur, even as a salesperson growing your business within someone else's business, whatever you do, you want to be executing on your ideas with a set of core principles that allows you to fail quickly, fail cheaply, maximize on the lessons of failure, while not getting dragged into the mud financially, meaning when you lose all your money, you waste a lot of time, and you're so just whipsawed emotionally from the whole experience that you don't really learn anything, that the lessons that you take away are the wrong lessons. I'll give you a perfect example here. When I had my massive bankruptcy in the meat business, I was 23 years old, lost everything. I'd gone from 0 to 26 trucks, co-signed personally for every single lease, found myself 23 and bankrupt. You know what lesson I took away? Maybe I'm not meant to be an entrepreneur. That was the lesson I originally took away. I was so shell-shocked. I made every mistake. I had overexpanded. I was undercapitalized. I had grown on credit. I wasn't screening out my employees. I made all these mistakes that caused me to fail miserably. And when you fail miserably, and also I failed slowly, it took me like 18 months of slogging through this shit to finally get to the point. It says no mas. I just closed it down. I just couldn't take it anymore, right? So I wasted time. I lost all my money. I ended up in debt. But most of all, in terms of the lessons, I was so negative and so emotional about it. All I said was, you know what? Maybe I'm not meant to be an entrepreneur. I took away the wrong lesson. The actual empowering lesson, the real lesson is, before you go out half-cocked and start a business, you better learn the rules of entrepreneurship. You better have a model for success. You need to model something that's already working, that's proven to make money. Start off with that and then build, tweak it, and improve on it. So I made those mistakes. I didn't stick to these core principles of failing elegantly. And on the flip side, succeeding wildly, how do you scale? Well, I've always been really good at that. That's been something I've sort of, natural tendency is to push it, know how to expand, delegate authority correctly, add people, and not live in fear, not play defense, play offense. Remember, you got to play offense to win, right? But here's the point for today. The question is when do you know to make the shift? What is that sweet spot in a business owner or even a salesperson? You test out a script or you test out a lead source. How do you really know? In other words, what really typically happens here, let me just kind of rip this page off here for a second here. All right, make it easy for myself. Watch. So, it's not like you test an idea and it goes like that. It's just not the way things operate in the real world. When you test ideas out, you might get these false reads and then it dips back and then you get another. Until finally you get to a spot where, boom, it really takes off. In other words, the biggest mistake I see entrepreneurs make is they test something, they get a good early read, and they think they've cracked the code, and they start to scale and get destroyed. Happens especially on Facebook. You start to advertise on Facebook, you spend some money, you get this amazing return. You're like, oh my God, I spent $1,000 and got back $15,000. I could just spend $100 and get back $1 million. You start thinking you could play that game without realizing that, number one, that your market is probably going to, I won't say saturate, but let's say you get your best buyers get used up relatively quickly. It gets more competitive. And also, for something happens on Facebook, God only knows what. But it just seems that every person I speak to that's had extraordinarily high returns on Facebook, Somehow, Facebook seems to cannibalize those returns on you and charge you more and more for advertising. Now, it would be illegal if they were actually figuring out what you made and just overcharged you or gave you shit traffic. So I don't think that's really happening. But for whatever reason, the way the algorithms play out, you can't take these early reads and just run with the ball. And it's not just on Facebook, it's in all business. You know, you open up one store, and how many times have I seen this throughout my life? Guy opens up a store, the store's booming in one location, he thinks he can open up 15 stores, and he's cracked the code. Next thing you know, 15 disasters are happening, and the guy's bankrupt. One little success, one micro, like just a blip, does not mean that you've proved your concept out to scale. There is this secondary portion here. When you get a quick early read, all right, I want you to pause. I want you to actually continue to backfill. Let things pause, allow things to really play out. Slowly increase your budgets. Slowly roll things out. Don't go from 1 to I'm going to franchise 50. Open up a second store. Open up maybe a third store. But I'm just using different examples. It could be anything. The point is don't take the first blip of success and say, I'm done. Time to succeed wildly. The process of failing elegantly is when you're testing to try to crack the code. I can't tell you how many false positives you're going to get along the way. This is the death knell of most businesses. They get an early read, they think they've got everything figured out, they scale to the stars and get destroyed. And anyone who's a real entrepreneur knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's something that's never really discussed. It just occurred to me today because I made the mistake myself. You think you got it all figured out, and all of a sudden, whoa, you start building overhead, you start expanding, and before you know it, there was something that wasn't quite figured out yet. There was more time needed in this sort of, I wouldn't say failing elegantly phase, but this middle phase, this bridge phase from when you get your great result and then start really secondarily testing it, trying to find out how big is the market. One of the things Alex Mayer, a friend of mine who's a big Facebook advertiser, says, because when I get the first early read, that's not enough for me. I want to do price sensitivity tests. I want to do volume tests. I want to do scaling tests. There's all these other tests that you need to do to really bridge the gap from the first early read to massive scale. Don't make the mistake that most entrepreneurs make, and even salespeople make. Well, they'll get a good, they'll go to a certain area or get a certain lead source. They'll get a good result. That's it. That's my business model. And they throw every resource into that, and before they know it, it's been saturated, didn't work, something went wrong, and it wasn't what they thought it was. I want you to have this secondary, essentially, it's like, okay, you get that bam, you get that first success, great. I want you to take the secondary step here where you have a slow, and it's not quite scaling. I want you to test capacity, test saturation, find your different price points, try to perfect your upsell model, life of customer value, right? Do those things first, and then once you really got it figured out, then I'm the biggest scaler in the world. But don't fall into the trap where you try to scale a really unproven idea because of one good test. Best advice I can ever give you as an entrepreneur. And if you want more advice like this, watch the next video here in this series here, okay? Because it's pretty much the same relevant topic here. And also check out all the other straight line trainings I have here. You can find them here on YouTube. You can find them on a lot of different platforms. Just check them out, and believe me, you'll be glad you did. And again, you can subscribe to this channel right now. You can check out my website, jordanbelfort.com. This is the real deal, and you know it is, because the truth resonates when you hear it. Take care. Have a great week.